Right, so there it was. That was the Gamescom demo through one time, so everybody's on the same page now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go through it again, but we're going to do it with pauses and
backwards.
Backwards,
no.
in Esperanto. Okay, here we go. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Welcome to the Avenger. She's a repurposed alien transport ship. Should make for the perfect mobile HQ. Once we get her finished, that is. From here we can strike against alien positions across the globe. She's not without her quirks, though. If you listen to Shen, the ship has a mind of its own. And I don't mean the AI. We've been reclaiming it piece by piece, but we've still got plenty of work ahead of us. So far, we've managed to outfit her with everything we thought you'd need to get started, along with some new additions I think you'll approve of. Which reminds me, you'd better head down to the lab. You'll want to meet Dr. Tigan. There's a few things you two should discuss.
We do want to meet Dr. Tigan, but let's pause here for a second. So
that's a good shot. That's got the whole thing there.
It's beautiful. So a bunch of different kind of modules of the Avenger are visible here. In the center there, you've got the hologlobe, the Geoscape view.
Right.
That's where we're going to jump into when we're getting ready to progress time, correct?
Yes, that's where you transition to the Geoscape, the strategy layer, where you can choose what missions to go on, fly around, things like that. And that's familiar to people from Enemy Unknown. Okay.
There's a little room above and to the left of that with the one XCOM flag. The big question everybody has is, could Central only find one flag in the ruins of the old base?
Actually, wait, there are two flags. So he doubled his effectiveness. Yeah, not much was left, I guess. So yeah, they're talking about the commander's quarters up on the left there. That's where it's the player's home there. So yeah.
And then the other flag is off and lower to the right there. That's the one in the armory. That is where you're going to go and you're going to check your troops out, equip them, modify them. We'll jump a little bit into that.
Yep.
And that's also the area where they're going to stage before they board the Sky Ranger before they head out.
The new and improved Sky Ranger. You can see it's a lot smaller. We wanted it to look a lot more thrown together, so it's not as complete and manufactured as the Sky Ranger in Enemy Unknown. So this one is much more. It's smaller. It's more compact. It's a little faster. I call it the Cricket. I don't know. I don't know why.
You've basically stolen an alien transport and you're kind of retrofitting it. So that's what those 9 rooms kind of in the lower area are.
Yes, those are all the rooms. And in fact, there's 12, if my math is right.
Yes.
There are 12 rooms for expansion. So from the very beginning of the game, the player devotes resources to opening up those rooms for building facilities, and excavation is actually pretty cool. You use your engineers to do that, and you can gain different resources, and the rooms have different value to them, and they take more, a certain number of engineers to clear, and so yeah, it's sort of like Enemy Unknown, but in a lot of ways it's different in terms of how you excavate and open up the base.
You don't just get a giant pile of dirt for excavating it. You get resources.
You get resources, and it depends on what stuff is in the room, but you could get supplies, you could get alloys, you could get other power benefits based on the room you uncover.
Mm-hmm. So in the upper right there, we have a little piece of UI that's showing us we're using 16 out of 20 power. So again, constructing power is going to be critical for this.
Right, yes. There are a lot of ways to change that number. But yeah, power is still a resource that the player has to take into account. But yeah, you can see at the very bottom of the Avenger, we've got some what look like old alien power coils. So you can interact with those. You can build facilities that can give you some power. There are a lot of different ways, actually, even on the Geoscape, where you can increase the Avenger's power.
Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to advance it forward. Let's go listen to Dr. Tigan for a second.
Impressive, isn't it? Okay.
So, I love this guy's voice. I really love the actor who does this voice. There's a lot of gravitas there, which I think you have to have when you're in a science fiction game, if you don't have the appropriate amount of gravitas, I
Yeah.
think all this pseudo mumbo jumbo science can sound ridiculous, but if you get a great voice actor, it sounds wonderful. So.
Yep. Now, is that a scar in the back of his head there?
That is a scar in the back of his head. Yes.
So we're
Yes.
gonna find out more about that a little bit later.
Immense power. You're completely harmless to human life. If only the same could be said for the rest of the aliens' technology. Commander. Dr. Richard Tigan, Chief Science Officer. I am responsible for the entirety of our...
One thing, this is just a silly tidbit, but the scientist's name is Tigan,
Yeah.
and that is a combination of two of my favorite scientists, Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Really?
So that's where the last name Tigan came from, is because two of my favorite scientists, I sort of put their last names together and came up with Tigan. So just a tidbit.
That's really
as
cool.
well as
I didn't know
the
that.
procedure you so recently underwent. Welcome to my lab, such as it is. I'm not sure what Central may have told you, but we found something while removing you from the alien stasis suit. A device implanted directly in your occipital lobe.
So does this mean we got the same chip that Tigan did?
It does look to be in the same location, and yeah, I mean that's a big part of our story, which we won't talk about. But what we can say is that's something the Advent. Obviously, there are trade-offs. They're a classic. It's the classic story of you have to make trade-offs for that kind of security, for that kind of life, and so it's a question of what trade-offs civilians are willing to make for the type of security that Advent offers. But that's a pretty good clue.
Yeah.
Had I access to the equipment available to me during my tenure at Advent, I would already know the precise nature of its function. However, given time and your approval, of course, Commander, I assure you, I will find out. Which brings to light an additional point. Though aspects of this facility are indeed impressive, I am but one man. Were you to direct additional support personnel and resources to me, I could substantially improve the speed of all our research. Farewell, Commander.
Tigan's one of the best minds on the planet.
All right. So this looks almost like enemy unknown research to some extent here. Again, you're going to
Yes.
be collecting resources or things in the world like corpses and weapon fragments.
Right.
And then you're going to be doing science. on
That's
them.
the way that XCOM does science. It's a violent, bloody business the way XCOM science is. But yeah, I mean, we have Tigan, who is I really like Tigan as characters. Obviously, we don't typically push that as much in XCOM because typically the player story is what we're interested in. But I do like the character of Tigan. He talked about his time in Advent, so that I always thought was kind of a neat thing, is how Tigan actually has worked for Advent. So we always think to ourselves, well, he's obviously the one to help us make our technology gains. A key in XCOM is take the enemy's technology and start to use it for your own purposes. And so that makes sense that this scientist who comes from Advent, who worked for Advent, he can obviously break these things down and then make them even better than the stuff he was making for the Advent.
I just have to say there's a lot of skepticism about his potential loyalty out there on the internet. There's a lot of people who preemptively don't trust him because he's from Advent.
And that's what somebody like that has to deal with, is that he has to earn back that trust because of the choices he made. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to follow.
So Newton stood on the shoulders of giants to advance science, and we're going to stand on a pile of
of enemy
bodies.
corpses. That is how we do
Glad
science.
he saw the light and came
Can't think
over
of a
to the
better way
right
to do it.
side. Still, he's not kidding about needing that support. With Advent controlling most of the world, it's not just resources that are scarce, but manpower too. We're running a skeleton crew right now, Commander. It'll be up to you to decide how to assign the staff we do have.
All right, there's some cool stuff in this room that I think warrants some going over. So this is the Advanced Warfare Center.
Yes, it is. So the idea is that this is sort of a future combat space, and this is a more advanced facility. Certainly not available early on, but it does some cool things. Probably my favorite thing about the AWC is that it sounds like a fast food restaurant, I suppose, but the AWC is that one, it speeds up the healing of your soldiers, and as your soldiers get more advanced, you need that. You need to be able to get them back on the battlefield.
Right.
But that's what it does just by default, and it also uncovers sort of hidden perks in your soldiers. So as they level up, they can actually gain skills from any class. So any other class of soldier, your soldiers could pick up those perks. And so, and there's a lot of really cool ones, but if you could get, you could be a sniper that gets run and gun, and that kind of actually goes to the heart of what we wanted to do design-wise in XCOM 2, was we wanted to let off the reins. We held them pretty tightly in Enemy Unknown because that was our first time making XCOM, and we thought, okay, and it still is a scary moment as a designer. You say, do you want to control the experience of the player? Do you want to, really tightly control? And in XCOM 2, this is just one tiny sign of that, where we said, no, we want to let go of the reins and let players have crazier experiences. And this leads to that. You can get some really cool combinations of perks that soldiers shouldn't get, and it creates some really cool, powerful combos.
People seem to like that. People seem to be responding positively to that. At least our Twitch chat is. So let's go ahead and we'll advance this a little bit.
Genetic research has come a long way since you've been gone. Given time and effort, there's no telling what kind of enhancements we'll be able to provide our
Enhancement
soldiers.
roulette, if you will.
Right.
All right, so we've just assigned an engineer to here. We have 2 spare engineers. It was telling us about that. And we've got another engineer. And one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, can we customize these guys?
Yes, yeah, you can customize your engineers and scientists. And one thing that I like to point out there is the headshot. That is like one of my... It's a smaller feature, but it's something I really, really like when I'm playing, is that we have headshots now of your soldiers, of scientists and engineers, and that's always really cool, is that you, at different points, will pop up different information about your soldiers, if you want to look at your soldiers, and we'll have these updated headshots. And then we showed in E3 that the enemy had those headshots as well. So you'll go into a mission, and then your top soldiers will be on billboards, and it will say, wanted, and that's always just a really neat moment. It's a small thing, but it's one of the things that I really like.
Well, it's nice that these guys have names and fake personalities now instead of being
Right.
resources like...
They're the staff are actually people that you move around, and we wanted to make it everything. We zoomed in the view on the base to make these more people, more characters that you see them, when you staff them, you see that they pop in to do the work there. So that's something we wanted to achieve.
Cool.
Smart move. They should be able to patch up our troops more efficiently and get them back into the fight even faster. As smart as he is, Tigan's research can only go so far without a solid engineering team to back him up. You better check in on Shen.
That's not the Shen we knew and loved.
No, that is not. That is a new Shen to know and love. Yeah, this
Should we advance it a little bit? Let's
let's listen.
Okay, reworked your repulsors with some of the parts I salvaged from your old engine. Should fix that stabilization problem you had. Come on, Rover. It'll work. There. Commander! Getting our tech to talk to theirs is harder than you'd think. Lily Shen, Chief Engineer, at your service.
So this is Lily Shen. This is Shen's daughter.
Yes, this is Shen's daughter, and just as much of a genius as her father, but yeah, she is now here to carry on the work of Dr. Shen.
Okay.
You were probably expecting to see my father. In all that's happened, I'm guessing Central didn't tell you yet. He's gone. Dad gave everything he had to get us this far. This entire ship is his life's work. I know he would have loved to show you around the place himself.
I just wanted to make the point there for, I love the little touches that our artists add to it, and you notice her hands were dirty, so she's a true engineer. Like, Lily is behind all of the, she hand makes all the tools, all these weapons of destruction, so she has her hands dirty.
Yeah. Okay.
He used to talk about you a lot. You can be sure I'm ready to finish what he started. might not look it. But from here, I can fabricate pretty much anything you come up with. And with a little more help, well, you'd be amazed with what I can do. It was an honor to finally meet you, Commander.
Wouldn't even be this far along if it weren't for her.
All right, so tell us about engineering, high level. What does the
Yeah,
department do?
engineering, it's in some ways, in a second we'll talk about some pretty significant ways in which engineering has changed. But engineering is similar in the sense that you use your resources that you've gained to build items, of which we have a lot more. We have a lot more items in XCOM 2 than we did in Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within. And you build your weapons and your armor here. One cool thing is that when you build your weapons, then you build them for everybody. So the idea is that if you build a new class of weapons, like you saw the magnetic weapons there as a tech, if you were to say, okay, now I want to build magnetic weapons, if you built a magnetic rifle, you now have a endless supply of magnetic rifles. And so it sort of steps the entire all your entire gear up one level for just that specific weapon.
So if
yeah,
you
there are
wanna do-
many different types of
Right.
weapons, but just specifically, you now have a store of magnetic rifles that some of your classes could use. But we did that because there are a lot of ways, which we'll talk about here in a second, but there are a lot of ways that you can now customize on top of that. You can upgrade your weapons. You can even, you can do all kinds of customization to them. And so this makes basic engineering a little more easy to use and a little more friendly, because then we've added a ton of new systems over the top of that.
So it's less about building a number of individual magnetic rifles or magnetic shotguns.
That's
or
right.
magnetic sniper rifles, and more about saying, okay, we're getting out of the ballistics business and we're going into railguns.
Right, and of course you still do have to build every single type of weapon, of which there are quite a few, and there's still a huge, and they're more expensive, respectively, because of that. But yeah, you're right. It's really more about, now that you've got a magnetic weapon, now how are you going to customize this one? Who's going to carry this one?
All right, let's
With
bounce it
your
up a little
support,
bit.
I know she'll make her father proud. Proving Grounds, Shen's name.
This is
Not
one of my
far.
favorite
With
new
resources
Yes.
being so scarce these days, her people have had to get creative with their designs. Ammo, explosives, armor. The end result isn't always predictable, but so far it's been damn effective.
So that is, you're just going to get a new type of ammo in 10 days. You don't get any control over what it is. It's ammo roulette or grenade roulette.
That's right, and there's a lot more items like that. So there's stuff we haven't shown, but there's different vests you can get, ammo, grenades, and they all. The idea behind them is that, look, you're making the effort. You're spending a lyrium core and a bunch of supplies. You have to do a lot of things to start that project.
Right.
And so everything you get is unquestionably better than base ammo, base grenade. They're unquestionably better. It's just a question of in which way are they better, in which way are they different. And it's really cool. I mean, there are lots of really cool different types of ammo that have a lot of fun effects. And so it's just, it's a small thing, but it reflects this philosophy of, okay, we're taking our hands off the reins here. We want it to be more replayable. We want to let the players have a little more of an up and down experience, getting these different experiences when you play and you go into the proving grounds. You say, all right, I want a grenade. You don't know what you're going to get, but it's going to alter your play style slightly depending on what type it is, who you give it to. So it's fun in that regard. And there are a lot more experimental projects in here, and then there are more standard projects, kind of like the Foundry from EU. So
Right.
There's experimental stuff, and then there's standard projects.
And you can repeat experimental ammo
Oh, yeah.
again. So
Oh,
you
yeah,
can, if you get Venom rounds this time around, you can get something else the next time you do it.
Yep,
Okay.
you can do it as many times as you can, but it's fueled by Elerium cores, which are not easy to get your hands on. So it's sort of like enchanted ammo.
Nice. If you're really itching to give that ammo a try, assign an extra engineer to work on the project.
And again, this is another use of engineers. You slot these guys in, and they'll speed up the project. on
Good
it.
call.
Right, good old Tommy Pinelli from. Okay, it's a little early to do voices, but yeah, I mean the engineer. What happens with your engineers is that they really become this very precious resource, and in typical Firaxis or XCOM fashion, you have 10 things that you want to do because they're going to give you something good, but you really can only do 2 or 3 of them at a time. Then you go on a mission, you come back, and all of a sudden you've got 2 more things to do. And so your engineers, you're like, do I want to get this ammo quickly? Do I want to finish this special item from the Proving Grounds quickly? Instead, at the same time, you need to excavate because maybe you want the resources, maybe you want the space. At the same time, maybe you want to heal your soldiers. And so there's, no matter however many engineers you get, you know, the Avenger expands and expands, and then they're always this precious commodity of where you put them at any one time.
Mine always seem to be cleaning rooms for
That
me.
will cut down our manufacturing time significantly. Research and manufacturing are a key part of the process, but at the end of the day, it takes soldiers to win a war.
Some cool stuff in here
Picked up a few
too.
tricks
Yes.
over the years.
So I'm just going to point out one of my favorite details is the sectoid punching bags on the left-hand side. And
Yeah.
I like the water cooler too.
Yes, yes, that took 4 months of water physics technology. That's not true. I don't want anybody to think we spent.
Advent's got us outgunned and outnumbered, so we had to adapt. Specialize our training and tactics to target their weaknesses and play up our strengths.
Right. So
You can train a rookie to
yes.
become a specific class.
Yes, and that's something that people wanted, and you know, again, that's something where we heard that, and obviously a lot of this being a sequel and being Firaxis, what's most important to driving the design of our products is engaging with fans, seeing how they play and things they want, and that's what really, me personally and design-wise, that's what drives us, and so this is a small example of that. You know, people would say, oh, you know, why do I have 14, you know, and EU would be like, I have 14 support soldiers.
Snipers.
I hate you and you should feel bad. And so we said, all right, look, we need to give people the ability to, and again, there's a time trade-off, and all these numbers are totally in the balance phase, and so I've been feeling lately like 10's a little long, but
Really?
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I would love maybe 7. I mean, I'm not talking drastic. You know, you won't get them in one day or anything. But yeah, it's nice to be able to say you get a recruit, and for whatever reason, you know, you can actually see your recruits before they come in XCOM 2.
Right.
And so you'll see somebody. I don't know, for what reason you'd be like, hey, that guy's a specialist. I don't know. I mean, or you say, look, I need to pad this out with more grenadiers, or I just like to run with more Rangers, which was design-wise, I used to always think, okay, you deal with the hands you're dealt, that's XCOM, and that certainly still happens on XCOM 2, but this gives the player a little more flexibility to say, I like concealment, I want more Rangers, so sure, go ahead and get
I'm
another
going to
Ranger.
mulligan a little bit on my rookies and
Yep.
get what I want.
Yep.
Rangers operate in the shadows. They like to handle things up close and personal.
If I could do pull-ups like that, I'd
know.
be a happy man. It just keeps going.
What I like is the training over there, which is all these little touches, you know, of
Soldiers perform
this is so much more
to get you
alive, I think, than the
should check
base
in
and
on
enemy
them.
unknown, so you can see the characters and see them interacting.
So we're gonna level up a rookie here.
Yeah, and for me, it's important to say, obviously, international is still the feeling of XCOM. So again, we still have this big international crew.
And our specialists continue to take them to new levels. We can configure the drones to provide remote medical triage or tailor them to dish out some serious punishment to the enemy.
All right, I know we've talked a lot previously about the specialist class, but I just wanted to kind of pause a moment here to let people really look at this up close. But this is also kind of cool because it shows some of the stats out for the soldier as well too. So let's start with the abilities. Kind of, there's 2 basic branches again for the classes.
Yeah, and you can see we named them. You know, you've got the battle medic tree, you've got the combat hacker. And the thing behind the classes in XCOM 2, obviously we're striving for this sense of balance, but it's not one versus the other a lot of time. A lot of time, we have these we've really tried to push the branches of these classes really far apart, and so you can go back and forth, and I do that all the time when I'm customizing my soldiers.
Right.
But it's not an either or now. It's kind of like sometimes you want a full-on battle medic, and you want to then support it with a combat hacker because they can take over robots, they can deal damage, they do a lot of really cool stuff on their own, and so the idea is that we want each branch to be a very cool class, and you just can't put them all on the battlefield at the same time, except in rare situations. And so the idea is that we still have this trade-off between two abilities, but the philosophy behind it is kind of different, where it doesn't have, we don't consider it to be like, oh, this is an impossible choice. It's more, what does the player want to get out of this soldier? But obviously there are plenty of times where it's a very difficult choice between this ability or that ability.
Yeah. So moving over to the right side of the screen with the numbers, looks like we've got a couple of different scales going on. Obviously, Will 3, is that on a 100-point scale? Are these numbers on different scales?
They are. They're on different scales, which I think what you're implying is that I'm a terrible designer, because what I could do is there's subtext there. There's subtext.
Okay, fine.
No, yeah, I think that it makes me look at it now. I'm questioning, but no, yes, these are all on different scales, completely different scales. What am I doing with my life? No, some of them are on 100 scale. So she has a hack score, very, very high hack score, because she is a specialist. They are, they're really the only soldiers that unmodified, they are going to be able to do in combat hacking, which can result in some pretty big bonuses for your squad. But aim, obviously, that's like enemy unknown. You're going from 0 to 100 plus based on modifications. Health translates directly to your soldier's health. Mobility tells you how many tiles you can move in a single move. Okay. And then hack is 0 to 100, and that trades off against the tech defense of whatever it is you're hacking. And then will is on a much smaller scale. So will is kind of a different stat that controls all these bad effects that can happen to you in combat, and so it's more of a dice rolling stat.
Okay, let's keep rolling then.
Can't go wrong either way, Commander. Gone are the days when we had a flood of new recruits coming in from nations around the world.
So one of the things that surprised me with not only our team, but the general public, was the ways people modified things between, color schemes and hats and Garth's very famous 80s action hero lineup that you did with that.
That's right.
And so when you guys were getting ready to do X2, I remember early on you were like, we're just going to blow out.
Yeah, and that, again, it's another case of when we saw how people played with the characters, and certainly we loved customizing our characters, but when we saw how much care people took in their individual soldiers, and when we felt the strength of connection between certain soldiers, we said, okay, obviously we're going to push that. Now, all credit to the character artists, like they have really, really pushed this far to the point where I remember being a little nervous. We were coming up at the beginning, with all these lists of things we wanted you to be able to do with characters. Yeah. And a lot of times in development, you come with this huge list of stuff, and you're like, okay, that's not all going to make it by the end. There'll be, there'll be problems with it, or we won't have thought of something. But really, they really did it. All these armors can have patterns. You've got tattoos, you've got scars, you've got so many different haircuts. And that haircut is my personal favorite. That is what I call the Ragnar.
Let's get a look for it.
Yeah.
The tattoos are pretty
Tattoos are a lot of fun. Every armor type, you can pull the sleeves off to make sure that you can see your tattoos on all of your soldiers.
We're pulling from all
everything is gunshot time.
Oh, and one thing I should say is that this is a veteran, right? So you can see it's a sergeant. Like some of these customization options, they are available once you hit a veteran rank, which for us right now is sergeant. So putting things like tattoos on your soldiers, some of the crazier hair, like that's for your patterns on your armor, that's for your veterans. And that's it protects you from yourself, because not that we really want to protect people from themselves, but I have spent so much time customizing my rookies. Like you'll get someone, you're so excited, and like you'll get somebody and it's this Irish guy and he's got red hair just randomly, and you're like, well, I'm going to customize the hell out of this guy. And so you spend all this time, and then when they die, you realize, like, I just lost an hour of my life to one errant, bullet, which, of course, then it makes it harder to play Iron Man in that regard.
Right now, no real tree for rookies. Rookies don't get the camo. Rookies don't get the cool haircut.
And I should be careful what we've put behind them, but for right now, there are some options. Like, obviously, you can color them and put all kinds of props on them. But we have some things, definitely tattoos and scars we put behind the veteran.
Civilians, combat vets,
Take a look at the scars.
and everyone in between.
Oh yeah.
That's a chrysalid claw.
Yeah, and in some cases, and we won't talk about how, but in some cases those get applied to your soldiers automatically as a sign of stuff they've gone through.
All right, this is cool. These are custom animations.
Yeah, this is turned out to be, this is one of those things that, again, the animators did an awesome job of this, where this was an idea from the very beginning, and you're like, is that going to be any good? It's kind of this pie in the sky idea, but then when they went in, it's really satisfying because you have your story about your soldiers, and we don't tell you who your soldiers are. We don't try to dictate you the stories of your soldiers, and those are the most important stories in XCOM. But having this and like the voice, the ability to change the voices and accents on your soldiers has just, there are these things that they seem small, but they're not small when you see these guys like the intense, so you'll have the soldier and she'll be just like ramped up all the time, and then you've got your happy-go-lucky where they're smiling and looking at their gun, and it's a small thing that actually has a big impact. So you get all your soldiers lined up, and you can definitely tell like who you think is like, okay, this is the crazy one here. This is the one who bathes in blood every night. This is the more laid back one. So yeah, they've got a little smile there.
Twitchy is good.
Twitchy's good. Twitchy is probably what most XCOM soldiers should be.
Twitchy is hunkered down.
That and some big guns.
Okay. Guns.
Yeah,
so we
guns.
want customization to guns too.
It's always the question, how many guns? Yeah, so obviously weapon upgrades are a big part of it. So we talked a little bit earlier about how you buy this single class of weapons, and then what really makes them unique is we have 6, I think. Don't hold me to that because I'm counting in my head, but we have 6 different upgrades for rifles, and they have limited slots in which to upgrade.
So
and of
this
course,
shotgun only has 1 slot. So
that's
you're gonna
right.
pick 1 upgrade, and that's going to be it for this shotgun.
Right, that's right. And so, and that can go up over the course of the game. Your weapons will have more slots to upgrade, and then there are different levels of upgrades, and so you can get some amazing ones. If you get the superior upgrades, they're awesome. They have there's some really cool effects, and so you have to choose, okay, which soldier do you want to give it to because I love this soldier, or based on her class, or based on the way that I use this soldier, maybe I want to give him the upgrade. And like one thing is auto loader, right? So it's free reloads. That is a huge upgrade for snipers, because what that means is that you can, in the same turn, you can reload, it costs you nothing, and then do another sniper rifle shot. And so it's it just synergizes really well. It also synergizes well with the Grenadier and their cannon, but it synergizes really well with the sniper. But so does the scope, obviously. And so that's the trade-off you get into.
I put a lot of reload auto loaders on shotguns because the ammo capacity is only 3 instead of 4, and so when you got a ranger who's fighting up close, you don't want to take that extra turn because somebody's gonna
and based on your abilities, we have a lot of abilities that allow you to chain events together, and so that's why ammo is such a big thing. But you can never turn down increased aim, right? But that's the kind of thing you get into, and then of course you've got the different classes of weapon upgrades. So you'll occasionally get this awesome drop, and then you'll go out, you'll pick it up, and you're like, oh my god, it's early in the game, and I just got a superior scope or whatever it is, and so. That's how weapons have gotten a lot more interesting in XCOM 2. Is it's not just having these different types of weapons; it's now having these upgrades at the top of them.
Which makes getting hold of replacement parts tougher every day.
Ooh, plus, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't talk this much. This is gonna be like a 7-hour stream.
I'm gonna have you the 45 minutes.
Right.
I'm gonna give you the pause key next time.
But yeah, then I love this, of course, is that you can customize the individual weapons, and this is a funny thing that just came up recently. But it was like, man, it'd be awesome is if we could name our weapons like, it's like Diablo. We put in this loot on these things and enchanting. It's like, oh man, we've got to call these weapons the Bleedinator or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, engineers and our UI guys, they're all just great at, once a game's playable and they're having fun with it, then they were able to just like really quickly like, oh, we could do that. And so we put it in there, and you don't do it all the time, but it's for your favorite characters. You're like, okay. She carries Razor or whatever you want to call your gun.
So my snipers end up with a sniper rifle with a laser scope, and it's called the Red Rider.
Right, that's a good one. Mjolnir. You know, there's a lot of great names for weapons out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see patterns. You can have patterns on your guns
Well,
as well.
Commander, now that you've got a handle on the tools at your disposal, we should discuss how to put them to use. If you'll do...
Attention. Incoming transmission. Incoming transmission.
It's on a secure channel. Patching it through to your quarters now.
Say hi to the council guy.
Our friend,
Hello,
quote-unquote
Commander.
friend.
I
It is
trust him.
good to see you again. We need you to take charge of resistance operations throughout the world. Establish contact with the local cells and bring them into the fold. Save our world. Time is short, Commander. Good luck.
You always wonder how he orders like fast food, don't you? You know, it's like, is he that intense all the time?
I will have 2 medium cheese pizzas.
My time is short. Yeah. So that yes, the spokesman is back, and he is definitely a big part of the game, and he operates in a different role, obviously, because we're Resistance now.
Yep.
But yeah, he's back, and we're glad to have him.
Some week we should do a live stream just completely backlit, just being faces backlit.
Right.
Just
For easing
faces.
into
Yes.
things.
That'd be good
We
for
better
30
get started.
seconds.
Yeah, and then everybody get really tired of it. I would get tired of it.
The aliens may have the world in their grip, but a small number of us are trying to change that.
All right,
Oh boy, this is
Where to begin
how
with
long
this?
is this stream? This is we've
take
made
your time. Take your time.
So this obviously has changed quite a bit. The Geoscape, this is kind of the heart of the strategy. You know, there's 2 sides to strategy. There's the Avenger,
Yeah.
and then there's it's actually kind of like your soldiers, the Avenger, and then the Geoscape. And
Right.
the Geoscape has undergone a lot of changes because. Thanks a lot. My watch tells me it's time to stand. It means I'm talking too much. The Geoscape's undergone a lot of changes in XCOM 1. It was kind of, you had the entire world begging for your help, and you had to rush satellites out to them.
Right.
And that resulted in a pretty clear strategy. And so we heard that, and you know, that was fine, that was fun, but we heard that and we said, okay, our players are playing over and over. They're saying, all right, there's this strategy is clear. So we said, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, we don't want clear strategies. We want different experiences when you play through. And this whole idea of XCOM 2, one of the things we thought was everything is kind of a reversal. So you start with one region. You start with that just single region where Resistance HQ is, where you can do a lot of cool things. But you just have that region to start, and now it's on you to expand, not to, you know, in Enemy Unknown, it was try not to lose everything.
Right.
In XCOM 2, it's, okay, you need to expand, and you need to grow, and you need to build your base, and you need to do it quickly because the aliens they already have control of the world, and you need to stop them. And so it's a very different feel, and mechanically, there aren't nearly as many mechanics that sort of carry over from Enemy Unknown. This has got a lot of new mechanics in it.
So let's take a look at some of these here.
Right now, we're in scattered pockets. We need to get organized. Tigan's work is the first step in that process. Good.
Okay, so
We just
this is
went
a
live.
research notification, just like
Right.
Unknown. Hey, you're done. Go back to the lab.
That's
Somebody has
right.
to research.
Yeah, and we've got all new techs. I mean, some of them are familiar in terms of everybody likes to upgrade weapons and armor and things like that. And we do have autopsies, but we have lots of new techs as well that kind of tie into the theme of XCOM 2. And this is a good example, Resistance Communications. And this is what opens up the ability for us to now expand into different areas of the world.
All right, let's take a look then.
Already getting a read on a few regions.
We kind of have access to different regions based on where we are, so there's sort of pathways that connect the different regions. Of the
Yeah,
world.
there are pathways, and so not every region is, you can't just contact any region you want around the world, even though you're going to want to, because you know the aliens are doing things out there, and you're going to hear like, hey, there's something really bad happening in this region, but you're going to have to find your way there. You're going to have to make contact with the Resistance, and in order to do that, then there's this. You have to take into account, okay, the links between these regions. You can move between regions that are connected. You're the one that's making some of these connections, but yeah, you have to sort of think about the relationship between these regions now, and you have to make choices to contact these two places, there are trade-offs involved, a lot of trade-offs involved.
All right, let's take a look.
We can't be everywhere at once, Commander. We need to choose our moves carefully. Help our allies while disrupting enemy operations to build the resistance. En route.
I hear Europe is lovely this time of year.
Yes, not in the future, but we showed there that we're using this we have a totally new resource, Intel, and like any resource, there are a lot of different ways to spend it, a lot of different ways to gain it. But in this demo, we're making contact with multiple regions, but it's never that simple. There are a lot of things you're going to want to do, and you're going to want to get your hands on enough intel to make that happen. But also, as regions get further away, the intel cost to connect them goes up. You can find ways to bring that down, but yeah, there's a lot of gameplay with that.
Okay, the plus 80 that's next to Western Europe and
yes.
plus 150 for East Africa, that is the income? Like, what does that...
That's the supply income from that. Like, if you have contact with them, the resistance there will collect supplies on your behalf, and so supplies are roughly equivalent to cash that you got in Enemy Unknown. You always have to have, it's a strategy game, you always have to have some base ducats, basically.
Yep.
But that number can go up and down based on a number of a lot of factors. But yeah, that's sort of the base number there. In your home region, you've got the radio towers there, so you've got a boost to the income there. So yeah, that's your income from that region if you make contact.
It'll take time to get actionable intel on the area, Commander. Our operatives need to make contact with the locals and get the lowdown on the enemy. Looks like Shen's people came through. Looking forward to putting these to use.
There's our Proving Grounds project coming to fruition.
There's word of a supply depot not too far from our position.
Now, these rumors and points of interest that are out there in the world, like, you have to go get those, and they expire after a while.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big changes is that you're doing something to pass time. In XCOM before, you just sort of you couldn't do anything active. You just sort of hit a button and time would fast forward, and then the next event would happen. And we wanted that to even be a choice of how you're passing time and what you're getting out of it. And this is a very sparse Geoscape. You get a couple missions in, and all of a sudden, that bar at the bottom is filled up on both sides with missions and rumors and supply drops and the black market. There are a lot of things that, as a player, you are like, okay, I want to fly there because I really need to uncover this, but all this takes time, and so now you're choosing, okay, if I pass time up at this rumor, what we call here, the resistance, if you do things for them, they give you rumors, and you're like, oh, great, I could go find some supplies. Or you need intel, you should go back to Resistance HQ.
Right.
Or, hey, I need to make contact. All these things are passing time, and so it's not at all this passive thing anymore. Now you're like having to choose where you're passing time, because some things give you good things, and then as you're doing that, of course, missions come up, and you're like, oh geez, I've got to choose now between, do I go on this mission, do I make contact, do I get those supplies I really, really need, do I go back to Resistance HQ and look for staff? So there's a lot of things that the player finds themselves juggling pretty early on.
All right, let's...
We can head there now or try establishing contact with another region.
Go to this thing suspiciously located in Germany, Eastern Germany, or Western Germany.
We'll need every resource we can get.
Always catering to the home crowd.
It went over well at the show.
And so yeah, this is one of many rumor. Like we have lots and lots, and I can't wait until people get their hands on and start writing their own rumors. But
which raises an interesting point. Somebody had asked earlier about modding, and I know we've said it before, but this is a lot more moddable than Enemy Unknown was.
Yeah, I mean, orders of that doesn't make sense, orders of magnitude, but
You want to talk about Dark Events?
Yes, I will say very, very moddable, very moddable. And then, Dark Events, it's a personal, I love Dark Events. And so the idea is that, the idea behind this is that the aliens are not this passive force. They are carrying out their own projects, which are chosen from a big deck of things that they want to do. They want to advance their progress towards whatever their win state of the game is, so they can do that. At the same time, they also want to throw the player curveballs through. We're going to make our baseline Advent soldiers tougher. We're going to give them special ammunition. We're going to make their armor harder. And obviously the one on the left, of course, you see that, a UFO is going to come hunt you down. And I think that's, as a player, again, you cannot, the aliens rule the world, right? They rule Earth. This is not our planet. And so you can't just go, well, I'll just take all of those out. You have to say, okay, I am going to, you don't know when they're going to complete. And so you kind of have to make trade-offs about, this is the one I don't want to happen, absolutely don't want to happen. You may get another shot at it with another mission later, and you could cancel multiple ones of these.
Right.
And sort of take them out if you're successful tactically.
Which we'll touch on.
Yeah, but then we even see here, there's another way to spend your intel, is they're carrying something out. You don't have the intel on, okay, well, what is behind that symbol? Like, is it something even worse than these two dark events here? Like, which one do you want to stop, and can you really let one pass you by hidden and not know whether or not you should be stopping that event? So yeah, the dark events, and you see, like, it tells you, they're going to carry out a retaliation strike, they're going to build a new alien facility, so there's a lot of stuff going on with the dark events.
All right, so let's...
Intel on some enemy Black Ops projects.
So these dark events,
This is the stuff
you
that
get the
doesn't
notice
get
that they're about to happen.
And they never end.
Well, you get the notice that they're actually carrying them out. They carry them out they're running in real time. You just don't know when they're going to happen. They could happen in a week, they could happen in 4 weeks. And so it's always kind of hanging over your head.
And so these guerrilla ops come up. This is, I'm going to let this advance a little bit. All right, and this is one way that you can counter these dark events.
That is one way that you can counter them. And so, you have this choice. And again, this is somewhat familiar to XCOM players, where you've got multiple sites that you can choose to carry out. This is an attack that XCOM's carrying out on the Advent operations that are supporting this dark event. So you're going in there, and let's say here you want to, all the objectives are different, right? You need to protect the device because the Advent are got a couple turns, are going to destroy the thing. And there's all these different objectives that you have to carry out to be successful. And if you are, then you sort of foil the dark event. At the same time, you got to weigh the difficulty of the mission. You got to weigh the reward. Like, you always need engineers. At the same time, maybe you need a scientist to speed up research. Maybe you need supplies. And so again,
maybe you really want to counter another dark event. You don't think you're going to have time to hit all of them. So
that's right. And so you say, which is the one I really can't let go through? And so there are these multiple vectors on which you're making these decisions. And is it my short-term greed, or is it my long-term strategy? So there are a lot of things that factor in.
Okay.
Raids like these are our best bet at uncovering what Advent's really up to.
So that one countered the unknown dark event. This counters the hunt the UFO one. But for the little sake of demo magic, it's going to happen anyway.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you could stop the hunters that are out there looking for the Avenger. But in the demo that may not be successful.
All right.
Well, got a lot of activity on the board right now, so just give the word. We're on it.
And here it comes. I think that went fun.
Yes. And that...
We've lost power! We're going down fast!
That's the intro movie for XCOM 3, where you lose the game that you lost the game.
Yeah.
And that's something that I always have to be careful when I say this, because I understand, and I think people who know that here at Forax is the story that matters to us the most is the player story. And what we want, and what we've tried to do with XCOM 2, is make it really, really replayable. That's always been our mantra, is like, we're going to make it unpredictable. We're going to take our hands off the reins because we want the player to have varying experiences from game to game.
Right.
At the same time, we do have cinematics. Some of them are story-driven. Some of them are just referencing events in the world. And we have a lot more of those, and they don't take away from anything else. They don't take away from all this gameplay we've added, but they're really high value, and so I can't wait for people to see those too. I think just showing some of the stuff in the Avenger shows, but we've got all this really cool stuff on both the story end, but obviously our focus is making it replayable, and all the gameplay we've tried to shove into the bag. That's some pretty high-tech design talk, right? Hey, just shoving all that design into a bag. Sometimes I don't sound qualified for what I do.
He's really very good at what he does.
I don't know.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much for coming on. There was a lot of information in that. Hopefully people...
My throat hurts.
Well,
I'm sorry if I get excited. I mean, when I haven't been talking very much about XCOM 2, so I do get very excited because we're playing through the game. We have all these great stories internally, so we're just really excited to start sharing them with people. We're sort of excited to bring this to people. So thank you for having me on. Let me talk to you. So
okay. So stay tuned. Watch our social media channels as we move closer to the release of XCOM. We'll have opportunities to talk more and more about the game itself. But thank you guys very much for coming in today and getting some of the behind the scenes for our Gamescom demo. And we'll be back next week on our weekly live stream. Thanks for coming. You guys have a great day.